Welcome back, everybody. My name is Adil Nchabeleng, and I'm your host on the energy crisis on a series documentary called A Beautiful Nation in Crisis. My co-host is Richard Douglas. Welcome, Richard.
Thanks, Adil. I can't wait to get started. Can we just jump right in?
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about demand-side management of energy, and and we were really just touching on some of the aspects of what really constitutes demand-side. I mean, Tsepo, you had some ideas that you were discussing to say we should understand energy from a different perspective, the energy mix component part of it, as well as the base load operation part of it. So can you take us into that whole overview?
All I'm saying is this, you have to have reliable supply of electricity 24/7, because electricity is on demand. It's not that we can use electricity. It's not like daylight saving, or we'll go to work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because the sun sets at 10 p.m. No, you can't do that. It's as and when you need it. So industry needs energy during the day mostly. The mining industry needs energy 24/7. And the households, they need energy at different times, which are largely in the evenings. So it therefore means that you must have constant supply of electricity at any point in time. Introducing any technology or solution that doesn't give you that reliability is a non-starter. And I can't see how anyone can ever believe that you need intermittent sources of energy, particularly for a country such as South Africa, and more so with the energy grid, or rather with the electricity grid designed. Ours is a unitary grid, and we do not have neighbors who at the end of the day we can rely on either to stabilize our grid so that we don't have the fluctuation in frequencies which can bring about the entire collapse of a grid. And it will take you 2 weeks in South Africa today if there was a complete blackout. So we don't have the neighbors who are themselves energy intensive users as well as producers. And with a unitary grid, it limits what solutions or what technologies you can introduce. It rules out completely any intermittent source of energy because of the way that our grid is designed. You cannot put wind or solar on the national grid for those reasons that I'm mentioning. Hence, we have these problems we have today where Eskom is going through a death spiral, and a death spiral with costs that are just, nobody can ever manage those costs.
Do you agree, Richard?
I don't agree. I think I'm a great believer in the mix. I'm not an engineer, so I can't say that we're you know, what the technical term would mean if I had to define it. But I think we have an abundance of solar energy. It's the best in the world, pretty much, if you look at the hotspots of the world. It just doesn't make sense to me not to tap some of that energy. Okay, we've got some of our neighbors have got some fantastic hydro resources. That forms, in my mind, part of the mix. Wind, again, there are high places, there are coastal places where there's often the wind is, they say the wind is always blowing somewhere in South Africa.
Correct.
So I think the debate I'd be prepared to engage on is the proportion of PV, wind, pump storage, hydro, pure hydro, etc. in the mix. But I can't believe that we can say there's only two forms of baseload, nuclear and coal, and those are the only ones we should have in South Africa.
No one is saying that. All we're saying is that by virtue of this manufactured term called mix, it allows different technology players to come in. We're not saying don't have wind and don't have solar. We're just saying don't have it at the expense of other things.
Totally.
If I may give you a simple example, all the signed renewable energy, wind and solar, were available during the load shedding that we've just had, that we are going to have in January as soon as the industry wants more power. But what happened was that no one told you that we've got Unit 3 Duva boiler down 600 megawatts. Now you've got one in Letabo. Then you had Quebec for fuel. That takes you to above stage 2 load shedding, which we had. One example of taking out a base load of just 2,400 result in load shedding, because if you had those two, we wouldn't have load shedding that we have.
So there were two power stations, as you say, that needed maintenance, including the nuclear Quebec station that needed refueling.
Yeah.
And that's what caused load shedding. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is we've been jumping between stage 1 and stage 2 load shedding.
Correct.
If you talk about stage 1 load shedding, during the time we had this load shedding, I'm saying one reactor in Koeberg is 960.
Yes.
That's an equivalent of stage 1 load shedding.
1,000 megawatts.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was down for maintenance. So
Fine.
which means if that reactor was up, we would never have spoken about stage 2 load shedding at all. If
That
it
That
was
should
up.
have been absorbed
No,
by
no,
the,
no,
by the reserve capacity.
Let me finish. So we would never have spoken about stage 2.
Mm.
But what I'm saying is the problems that have always been in the system. The Duva boiler that went down in 2014, it's still not up, 600 megawatts. Recently, everyone went ballistic when we saw the pictures of Letabo, one unit down there. Another 600 megawatt. Nobody has told you how much of this has contributed to the load shedding that we have, because people are not talking. The very same people that we trust are not telling us the truth. We put a challenge to this government and the departments and ESCOM people to say to them, how many units of ESCOM are done that they should not be done? Because it's not just those two.
Yeah.
There's more.
So our load shedding and our energy crisis today is based on one, if you're saying clearly that mismanagement, maintenance related. Secondly, it's based on the fact that our government is not prioritizing activities, as you say, in budgeting for maintenance. Secondary, the aspect of making sure that we have constant power supply.
Exactly.
Based on that, I mean, what could have been prevented? We entered a load shedding phase in December. What could have been prevented there?
Thanks, Adil. Before I get to that, I
Yeah.
think it's important to indicate that I am sole believer of energy mix. Tepo, I disagree that we don't need energy mix. We do need it.
We must
But
disagree.
yes,
There's nothing wrong.
Of course, so needing it means we do appreciate the disadvantages and the advantages of each energy power. For example, the coal fired power station, it's a base load as we speak. It's about 80% or so, and provide about 95% of electricity, whereas 5% it comes from the nuclear. Now, you are correct in saying that the renewable, the intermittent, they are not always available. However, it does not necessarily mean we have to exclude them. We just have to put them at the right scale, at the right place. In remote areas, in rural areas, you can actually.
It didn't say we must remove them.
But what Tepo indicated is that he believes in the base load from nuclear as well from coal. So he does not believe in
For the
yeah.
grid.
Yeah,
Yes,
but we've just given you a practical example. Those renewables were there, standing with the sun and the wind. The minute you have an additional problem to the base load,
Yes.
then you tell the country, I've got stage 1 and stage 2 load shedding. And all that happened was the base load disturbance of certain units. So
Okay.
we're not saying the renewables are not required. We're saying, please take this base load very seriously, because when it sneezes, the whole country sneezes. This is what has happened with this load shedding.
So
if I may, which I agree to that. The indication of what you just said, it just speaks to the capacity of the renewable compared to the base load. It means the renewable, they don't have the same capacity as your base load, your coal-fired power station, as well as the nuclear.
There's not one mine, there's not one smelter, there's not one skyscraper, there is none of that runs on any of the renewable sources of energy, because they cannot. If you are running a mine shaft, my brother, 2,000 meters below surface, which is you're never gonna go
2
and
kilometers.
you need to go and make sure you got reliable, you need cooling. It's 70 degrees Celsius down there, people die. You'll never ever take a chance and have solar or wind supplying electricity for a mine shaft 2,000 meters below surface, or 3,000 meters, or 3,800, or even 5,000 meters, as is the case with South Deep. So the intermittent energy, you'll never have it. Never put it on the grid, because when you put it on the grid, you end up with the problems that we have.
Yeah.
So you're saying we cannot run our mines?
Never.
With
Not
renewable
one.
energy,
No,
wind
not
or solar?
one. Not
No,
one.
no, no.
How come is that?
We've-
I mean, maybe you should come in and assist here.
Okay, I won't go to the mines. I want to ask the people at National Control of ESCOM to tell me that on a very good day, when you've got the highest wind speeds and you've got the highest sunshine in wherever in the Northern Cape, what exactly do they do to the ESCOM plant? I want to know, do they continue keeping them up there and run? or do they shut them down?
We must get a controller.
I want to know
We need a
that.
controller.
Because
I want to
there
ask
is-
from
there
the
is-
horse's mouth.
yeah, the reason
what
why-
actually happened.
Yeah,
Yes.
the reason why we have a strong suspicion that they either keep the ESCOM plants running and say, okay, you're producing 2,200, we will pay you for it, but we can't really put it to the grid because it's going to disturb the
You're
system.
saying the
Yes.
current
We strongly
renewable
suspe-
energy
Yes.
is coming into the grid, but ESCOM, because we keep on blaming IPPs, but nobody says ESCOM's responsibility on what IPPs are feeding in and ESCOM is not taking.
We-
Can we be clear on that?
Yeah, we're saying show us the data when ESCOM is running perfectly at a very high energy efficiency and your renewables are pumping very good. Show us the data, what do you do?
No,
We strongly suspect what they do is they keep the ESCOM machines running
Mm.
and then they chuck this one to the ground.
no, you have to keep them running. These are
Because-
running on coal.
Because the cost of bringing
Yeah.
them up again is just
You can't switch on a boiler at
Yeah.
3 o'clock. In Germany, they spend so much money on heavy fuel oil precisely for that very reason that of the intermittency. When you want to get a boiler up and running, you're going to have to use heavy fuel oil, which is more expensive than coal. But on the other hand, ESCOM has to keep their boilers running from 10 o'clock in the morning so that 5 p.m. they can meet the peak demand. So the question that I ask is this: will the Patco bus company keep their buses idling from 10 o'clock in the morning after they have all the commuters have gone to their workplace, keep the bus on idle, the engine idling, until 5 p.m. You will think that those guys are mad. They
I'm
must
gonna
go to
hold you on that.
Vescopis.
Nchabeleng, I'm going to hold you on that thought because this is a very interesting, very deep heated now. And I think let's catch it up on our next installment because at this stage, we've now identified one of the key problems. And now we need to get into the solution stages. You're saying there's a crisis and we have a real crisis in terms of energy crisis.